Stand in front of the Lion Gate at Mycenae. Look up. The lintel stone above that gate, the single horizontal block spanning the entrance, weighs somewhere close to 20 tons. The walls behind it are built from blocks that dwarf it. Some of them approach 100 tons. They were moved without iron tools, without wheels capable of bearing that load, without any machine we can confidently point to. The joints between those stones are so precise that after 3,000 years of Greek earthquakes, they haven't shifted. Later Greeks, people who came centuries after, looked at these walls and concluded no human being could have built them. They decided Cyclops must have done it. One-eyed giants. That's where the term Cyclopean masonry comes from. Not archaeology. Mythology. Because the alternative, that ordinary people did this, was too strange to accept. Here's what's stranger. The people who built them were gone before those later Greeks were even born. What you're about to see isn't a fringe theory or a cable TV mystery. It is one of the most thoroughly documented catastrophes in the archaeological record, and one of the least explained. Around 1200 BCE, the Bronze Age world was not primitive. Not isolated. Not a scattered collection of mud hut villages. It was a system. The Mycenaean Greeks controlled the Aegean and were building those walls, Mycenae, Tiryns, structures that still stand today. The Hittite Empire held Anatolia, modern Turkey, and had mastered ironworking at a time when every other civilization was still dependent on bronze. The city of Ugarit, on the Syrian coast, was a cosmopolitan trading hub where merchants from Egypt, Cyprus, the Aegean, and the Levant crossed paths daily, a city whose scribes wrote correspondence in at least 8 languages. And Egypt, still at its height, still carving its gods into mountains of stone. These civilizations weren't just coexisting. They were integrated. They moved grain, copper, tin, and textiles across the Mediterranean. They signed treaties. They sent their children to each other's courts in marriage alliances. They wrote personal letters. We know this because we found the letters. In 1887, a woman digging for fertilizer near El Amarna in Egypt uncovered hundreds of clay tablets, royal correspondence between the pharaoh and rulers across the Near East, written in cuneiform, the diplomatic language of the age. One king writes to the pharaoh, "In my brother's country, gold is as plentiful as dirt." It's the kind of line you'd expect from a modern trade negotiation. It is 3,300 years old. The Bronze Age world was bureaucratic, literate, and deeply connected. And that matters, because what happened next destroyed all of it. At Ugarit, archaeologists found something in the ruins that stopped everyone cold. A clay tablet. Still inside the kiln. Never fully fired. Never sent. The city was destroyed before the tablet could be completed. The text, translated from the Ugaritic script, reads something close to this: enemy ships have been spotted offshore. Villages along the coast are burning. We are besieged on multiple sides. The situation is desperate. Send soldiers and grain immediately. No response exists. Because no response came. Ugarit was destroyed around 1185 BCE. It was never rebuilt. The language of its scribes, Ugaritic, died with the city. Today we can read it only because of the tablets left behind in the rubble. But here's the thing that makes this more than a tragedy for one city. Ugarit wasn't alone. Between roughly 1200 and 1150 BCE, within a single human lifetime, nearly every major civilization in the eastern Mediterranean either collapsed entirely or contracted so severely they became shadows of what they had been. Mycenae, burned and abandoned. Tiryns, burned. The palace of Pylos in southern Greece, destroyed so completely and so fast that the Linear B administrative tablets inside were accidentally preserved by the heat of the fire. The scribes never had time to remove their records. The Hittite capital, Hattusa, abandoned. The empire that had rivaled Egypt for 2 centuries, gone. And Greece lost something that should be almost impossible to lose. It lost writing. Linear B, the Mycenaean script, the writing system used to manage palace economies, record tribute, list chariot inventories, vanished. Not evolved. Not transformed. Vanished. Greece would not develop a new writing system for roughly 400 years. Think about what that means. A civilization with archives, with accountants, with scribes trained from childhood, and within a generation, no one was writing anymore. Because there was no palace to write for. No economic system complex enough to require it. The population of Bronze Age Greece is estimated by some researchers to have fallen by as much as 75% during this period. That estimate is debated, the data is fragmentary, but even the conservative figures suggest a demographic catastrophe. 75%. Cities that had stood for centuries weren't just abandoned. They weren't rebuilt for generations. Some were never rebuilt at all. This is the shape of the collapse. And it raises a question that no one has cleanly answered. How do multiple advanced, unconnected civilizations, rivals, in some cases, fall within the same 50-year window? And that's where the story gets genuinely strange. In the temple of Medinet Habu, carved into stone by the order of Ramesses III around 1177 BCE, there is a series of battle reliefs unlike anything else in Egyptian art. They show a naval battle. And they show something that clearly unsettled the Egyptians enough to record it in detail: massive groups of foreigners arriving by sea and by land. Not just armies. Entire communities, men, women, children, cattle, ox carts. Moving. Migrating. Or invading. The Egyptians couldn't quite tell, and neither can we. Ramesses III called them the Sea Peoples. He claims to have defeated them. And he may have. Egypt survived when almost nothing else did. But notice, the inscriptions are Egyptian propaganda. Ramesses III is the one writing about his own victory. We should read them the way we'd read a press release. The Sea Peoples have fascinated and frustrated researchers for over a century. Some of the names in the Egyptian texts, the Pele Set, the Ekwesh, the Cheka, have been tentatively linked to groups we know from other sources. The Pele Set may be the Philistines of the Bible. The Ekwesh may have Aegean origins, possibly connected to Mycenae. But tentatively and possibly are doing enormous work in those sentences. We have their name. We have a carved image of their boats. We don't have their homeland. We don't have their language. We don't have a single text from their own hand. Were they the cause of the collapse? Or were they the product of it, refugees from already failing civilizations, swept up in a chaos they didn't begin? That question has no clean answer. And here's where the mainstream explanation runs into its own wall. Eric Klein, an archaeologist at George Washington University and one of the leading scholars on this period, wrote a book called 1177 BC, The Year Civilization Collapsed. His argument is careful and, I think, probably the most honest one available. He doesn't think there was a single cause. His model, what he calls a systems collapse, describes a cascading failure. Multiple stressors hitting a highly interconnected system at the same time until the whole network comes apart. Climate data from sediment cores and pollen samples suggests a prolonged drought hit the eastern Mediterranean beginning around 1200 BCE. Researchers including Brandon Drake have published work pointing to a significant aridification event in this exact period. When your empire runs on agricultural surplus and the rains stop for a generation. Add to that, disrupted trade. Bronze requires tin and copper in precise ratios. Tin came from sources as distant as Afghanistan and Central Europe, moving through long chains of middlemen. When those chains break, when a key port burns, when a trading partner collapses, you lose the ability to make weapons, tools, everything. Some archaeologists have found hordes of bronze objects clearly being recycled at this time, melted down and recast. Signs of scarcity. Add earthquakes, the region is seismically active, and there is structural damage at several sites consistent with major quakes. Add internal rebellions. Add piracy. Add whatever the sea peoples actually were. Klein's point is that no civilization can absorb all of those shocks simultaneously. The complexity that made the Bronze Age world so remarkable, the interdependence, the long supply chains, was also its vulnerability. When enough nodes failed, the whole system collapsed faster than any single actor could have caused. It's a compelling framework. It matches the archaeological evidence better than any single cause theory. But I'll be honest with you, it still doesn't fully explain the depth of what was lost. Systems collapse models describe how dominoes fall. They don't explain why it took 400 years for someone to put them back up. They don't explain why an entire region forgot how to write. They don't explain why those massive stone walls were never touched again, not restored, not built upon, not even quarried for new construction. Just left. As if the people who came after couldn't imagine touching something that large. As if those walls belonged to a different kind of human being. Here is what we know, and what we don't. We know the collapse was real, catastrophic, and nearly simultaneous across cultures that had no shared government and, in some cases, no shared language. We know that within 50 years, most of what had been built over centuries was gone. We know that writing disappeared. That populations crashed. That the trade networks which had connected 3 continents fell silent. We know the walls are still standing at Mycenae. Those 100-ton blocks, cut and placed with millimeter precision, have survived 3,000 years of earthquakes and erosion without repair, without maintenance, without anyone who still knew how they were built. What we don't know is the full cause. We don't know who the sea peoples were, where they came from, or where they went. We don't know why cities like Hattusa were abandoned in what looks, in some areas, like an orderly departure, as if people left knowing they weren't coming back. We don't know what knowledge was carried in the minds of those Bronze Age engineers and scribes and diplomats, and whether any of it survived the collapse in any form. The stones are still there. You can visit Mycenae today. You can put your hand on a wall built by people whose name for themselves we don't know, whose language we can only partially read, whose reasons for leaving we cannot reconstruct. So here is where I leave this with you. A civilization this sophisticated, this connected, this literate, this capable of moving 100-ton stones with a precision we still study, collapsed so completely that the people who came after thought giants must have built the walls. They had no other explanation. If that's what happened to them, with their archives, their armies, their trade networks, their diplomatic correspondence, then the question that genuinely unsettles me isn't historical. It's this: if our civilization collapsed tomorrow, and someone walked through our ruins 3,000 years from now, what would they be unable to explain? What would they look at and conclude no ordinary human could have built? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them. And I want to know what you think survived. If the Bronze Age collapse left you with more questions than answers, the discovery I'm covering next goes even deeper, and the evidence is harder to dismiss. It's on screen right now.